The lead attorney representing Hussein says that he needs more time to study international law before he can present a defense. Rahul Manchanda is an expert on international law. He joins us once again live from New York to discuss the legal principles that will guide the defense of Hussein and his 7 co-defendants. Good to see you again, Rahul.
Hi, Kira.
So what did you make of today?
Well, I think you definitely saw the prosecution trying to accommodate the defense. Like I said yesterday, the main focus here, it's very important to show that this is an impartial proceeding, not a kangaroo court led by the U.S. But at the same time, they're not going to kowtow to the defense either. The defense was asking, I think, for 3 months, the full extent. And statutorily, they're only entitled to 45 days. So I think at this point, you see that the court, even though they were entitled to deny the 45 days, they gave it to the defense, but they did not give them 30 days. In addition, I think you saw that they sort of interrupted Saddam when he was beginning one of his tirades against the international community in the court. And of course, you saw that the judge was not going to accept that either. So I think you're seeing the tenor of this case so far.
And you made it clear when you said to me early, no one wants to see this as a, quote, U.S.-led kangaroo court.
Correct.
Because as we know, when we saw Saddam in court last time, it can get pretty obnoxious, I guess you could say. So there's got to be respect from both sides.
Right. I mean, at this point, really, what's most important are the facts of the case. The Dujal massacre of '82, which is mentioned countless times, is by far the easiest case to prove because the facts and the evidence are certainly, abundant. And it's really a telltale sign when the defense is focusing on technical defenses to sort of derail the process, exhausting appeals, asking for more time, when they've probably got the best crack unit team of international lawyers the world has ever seen.
All right, let's talk about that team. Let's get right into it, because you and I have talked a lot about this, and we'll make it clear that not all of these individuals are attorneys. But let's talk about the lead attorney for Saddam Hussein, the one we're seeing a lot, hearing a lot from, Khalil Duleimi. What do we know about him?
Well, not much is known about Khalil Duleimi, except for the fact that he's obviously a Saddam Hussein sympathizer. He's probably a Ba'athist. What is known is that he's fairly inexperienced with international criminal trials, especially trials such as these. And he is obviously relying on many other advisors or quasi-international advisors to help him formulate defenses to the tribunal at this time, consisting of a few people that we'll talk about.
Well, we'll talk more about that, but from an Iraqi to an American, Ramsey Clark, I guess if you know his background, you're not really surprised that he's helping out, offering free services, but he's an anti-war advocate, but just a bit strange just to hear him a part of that team, I guess, in some ways.
Well, Ramsey Clark has a very long history of affiliation with the Saddam Hussein regime. I don't know if you'll recall that back in the Gulf War, the first Gulf War in the early 90s, he lent a lot of moral and logistical support as well as legal advice to Saddam Hussein, as well as, since that time, decrying the UK and US bombings of Iraq whenever there was some insurgency. He also appealed to the United Nations in formal letters that he wrote, literally accusing the U.S. of violating human rights when he himself is a U.S. citizen. He's a former 1960s advocate who served, I think, under the LBJ administration, and I think he's been fighting the fight for the last 40-some-odd years.
Interesting. I didn't realize he was so close with Saddam Hussein. Giovanni Di Stefano. We haven't seen this name in a lot of newspapers when you talk about those that are supporting his defense team. What's Giovanni doing?
Well, Di Stefano is an attorney. He's a UK-based attorney with Italian lineage. He is, I think, primarily responsible for the argument that the previous Iraqi constitution, which was supposedly sworn allegiance to by these judges that are currently serving, that they must support the legal notion that Saddam Hussein should enjoy full governmental immunity for the acts and activities during his administration, including these massacres, crimes, genocides against the Kurdish people and the Shias. I think he's primarily responsible for that argument. Again, he's an advisor that I think Khalil Duleimi is relying on. Recently, in recent history, Di Stefano has been accused of certain issues that are going on, I think, dealing with real estate issues in California, which are less than savory, but again, that's all speculation at this point. It's very hard to determine exactly what is the truth and what is not, but I think Di Stefano is definitely the prime architect of the argument that the previous Iraqi constitution completely forbids these judges from sentencing Saddam for the activities he committed while he was president of Iraq. 2
more interesting names. Muammar Gaddafi's daughter, Aisha, I'm not quite sure how she pronounces her name, but she's a lawyer.
She is. She's a lawyer and a law professor. Certainly she's the daughter of Muammar Gaddafi, who has a very illustrious history with the United States, especially during the Reagan administration. Recently, Muammar Gaddafi expressed contrition for the activities of the Pan Am disaster. I believe he expressed a formal apology. So it's a little bit ironic that his daughter is now coming out in this arena, but it's not surprising either.
Now, one that you told me a lot about, I found very interesting, and that's Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia. Why would he be a part of this team?
Well, Mahathir Mohamad was very popular in Malaysia because he's often credited with the success of the new Malaysian economy, and certainly with the towers that are built there now. But at the same time, towards his later years, he was very expressive of anti-U.S., anti-Israeli sentiment. I don't know if you recall, but he was responsible for a lot of statements that were not very politically correct in the international arena, and he seems like he had an axe to grind with U.S. policy, especially when it came to currency trading in his own country. I think he blamed the U.S. for that. But you know, he's a figure that's sort of loved and hated around the world, and I think he's more loved in Malaysia than he is around the world.
Rahul Manchanda, expert on international law. I know you're going to continue to follow this like we are, and we look forward to having you come back again.
Sure.